It might be uncomfortable for some people on this committee to hear about the true history of America, and I hate that for them, but facts are facts. And it's a fact that there is a violent, exclusionary, discriminatory, sexist, and racist part of American history, where our indigenous populations were forcibly displaced from their land, where thousands of Black people were unjustly lynched, where Black people were denied the right to vote, and they still trying to do it today, where women needed their husband's permission to open a bank account, where people with disabilities were routinely excluded from schools, workplaces, and public life, where 4 little Black girls were murdered by the KKK at the 16th Street Baptist Church. And a lot of this wasn't that long ago. In fact, 3 of those little girls would be 77 and 1 would be 74. More than 40 members of Congress serving right now would be older than them. Ruby Bridges, who was the first Black child to desegregate an all-white school, is only 71 years old. More than 100 members of Congress serving right now are older than her. So attacks on the Smithsonian or any other institution that's willing to tell the true history of America is not only an attempt to rewrite history, it's an attempt to erase history. So Dr. Blight, if Republicans are going to ban books, penalize schools and universities, attack museums, if states continue to change curriculum, where do Americans go to learn about the complicated, sometimes racist and violent parts of American history?
Thank you for the question. I think they will have to keep going to the same institutions, and we have to keep fighting to preserve what we are doing in those institutions. They have to keep going to public schools. They have to keep going to the public libraries. They have to keep going to the great Smithsonian. Look, the purpose of history is to enlighten us, inspire us, trouble us, bother us, sometimes make us angry. I find it hard to believe that a young person could go through the Museum of American History and not come out at least inspired with the single most important thing, a sense of the past, a sense of history. Americans have to keep going to those places they trust. We have to keep those institutions trustworthy.
Thank you so much. In fact, that takes me to Dr. Hardig. They accuse you and the Smithsonian of sowing division in this country. However, before the White House deleted it, the Departments of Justice and Homeland Security found the biggest domestic threat to the United States is violent white supremacists. So I have a couple of questions for you. First, to the best of your knowledge, has the museum ever been linked to any violent act that has occurred in the United States or against the U.S. government?
Thank you, ma'am. Not to the best of my knowledge.
I don't think many of these white supremacists can even read, but to the best of your knowledge, can you identify a single artifact in your museum that would divide the country?
To the best of my knowledge, ma'am, no. I hope that they unite the country through a shared understanding of our past.
Do you think, or do you ask the political affiliation of any of your employees before you hire them?
Absolutely not, ma'am. It's against the Hatch Act of 1939.
I'm glad that you know the law, but nevertheless, do you ask if they've donated to political campaigns?
Absolutely not, ma'am. It's against the Hatch Act of 1939.
We need a briefing in this building, but nevertheless, do you only hire non-white people?
No, ma'am.
In fact, almost 60% of the Smithsonian's total workforce is men and more than 50% is white. 90% of Smithsonian employees making senior level pay are white and 60% of them are men. I don't understand this fetish that these white guys with fragile egos have with trying to feel oppressed. It reminds me of the same people MLK was referring to when he said, quote, they believe that American society is essentially hospitable to fair play and to steady growth towards a middle-class utopia embodying racial harmony. But unfortunately, this is a fantasy of self-deception and comfortable vanity. I want to go back real quick, though, Dr. Blight, because you talked about the World Cup. The World Cup that captured the imaginations of the entire world when they saw all of these people of color that was playing for all these teams. And ultimately, if you recall, the last 2 teams, it was Argentina and Spain. And it seemed like the vast majority of the world was rooting for Argentina, or actually against Argentina, right? And why was that? Just give me an explanation if you could guess. If you'll just let them finish the answer.
Spain had the best team. Maybe that's why they were rooting for them.
There's also a racist history that exists.
Mr. Byer, you're recognized.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Crockett.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for letting me wave onto the committee. And Mr. Chairman, thank you for that sort of exaggerated opening video of Dr. Hartig, which I thought simply and respectfully recognized that our European ancestors and the African slaves they brought over came to settle and claim lands that had been home to earlier immigrants, those we call Native Americans that came between 15 and 30,000 years ago. Jared Diamond in Guns, Germs, and Steel points out that our virus and bacteria killed the majority of them. And then we proceeded to take their land, killed hundreds of thousands.
Listen to this. Crockett starts by saying it might be uncomfortable for some people on the committee to hear the true history of America. She says she hates that for them, but facts are facts. Then she lays it out. Indigenous people forcibly displaced. Thousands of black people lynched. Black people denied the vote, and she says they're still trying to do it today. Women needing their husband's permission to open a bank account. People with disabilities locked out of schools and public life. 4 little girls murdered by the KKK at the 16th Street Baptist Church. She points out that wasn't ancient history. 3 of those girls would be 77 now. 1 would be 74. More than 40 members of Congress right now are older than them. Ruby Bridges is only 71. Over 100 members of Congress are older than her. Her charge is simple. Attacking the Smithsonian or any place willing to tell that history isn't just rewriting it, it's trying to erase it. Then she turns to the historians. If Republicans ban books, penalize schools, go after museums, change the curriculum, where do Americans actually go to learn the complicated, sometimes racist and violent parts of the story? Dr. Blight says they have to keep going to the same places: public schools, libraries, the Smithsonian, and we have to keep fighting to keep those institutions trustworthy. History is supposed to enlighten us, trouble us, sometimes make us angry. Crockett then hits Dr. Hartig with the accusation that the Smithsonian sows division. She notes that before it got deleted, DOJ and Homeland Security had identified violent white supremacists as the biggest domestic threat. She asks if the museum has ever been linked to a single violent act. He says not to his knowledge. She asks if he can name one artifact that divides the country. He says no. He hopes they unite people through a shared understanding of the past. Then the hiring questions. Do you ask political affiliation? Donations? Do you only hire non-white people? He says no, cites the Hatch Act, and she reads the numbers. Almost 60% of the Smithsonian workforce is men, more than 50% white. 90% of senior level pay is white. 60% of those are men. She doesn't hold back. She talks about a fetish some people have with feeling oppressed, and quotes MLK on the fantasy of self-deception. This hearing wasn't polite. It was a straight fight over who gets to decide what history Americans are allowed to hear, and whether telling the uncomfortable parts is the same as dividing the country.